All right, so we are here today with Miss Danielea from the Listening Field, Danielea Castro. And Danielea, this has been a call that I've been super excited to get on. I absolutely love your channel. As I told you before we got started, the main goal is to talk about some amazing things that are all around us in our environment, things that you're very hip to, things that you're very aware of, but things that maybe in Western civilization we're not quite as much. And this ties into the knowledge that Native American Indians had and indigenous people. Um,
Mm.
and also, just promoting the amazing YouTube channel that you've got and being conscious of all that is around us. And your project and your YouTube channel is the Listening Field. And it's really about, I mean, you've got some amazing videos. We can go into so many things, but it's about communicating with trees, communicating with water, communicating with all in nature that's around us. And from a physics standpoint, I follow a gentleman named Dan Winter who could break down in physics that this is absolutely real. It's beautiful. It's all true, but because of our upbringing and the knowledge base that we have, we just don't understand that. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Maybe a little bit of what got you started, and tell us a little bit about the listening field.
Thank you so much, Sean. I really appreciate your your interest and your curiosity. I'll just say a couple of things about myself. I am someone who has always been able to have this communication, two-way communication with nature. The very first relatives, as I call them, that I communicated with were a grandmother willow tree who lived beside a creek. And I remember the first time we interacted, I was about 5 years old. So I was very young. And it seemed perfectly normal to me. At that age, I didn't yet understand that I came in as a telepath. So that's someone who can communicate mind to mind, if you will, and also came in as an empath. So my feeling realm was completely hooked up. So I could feel what everyone else was feeling, as well as hear what everyone else was thinking, whether you're human or otherwise. And then I also happen to have this ability. I call myself an incarnator. An incarnator means my physical body senses and changes as my consciousness changes. So you could be an empath and be really feeling, and the challenge is being flooded by feelings by other people's, but you're not actually in your body, right? Or you could be a telepath, but you don't actually feel a lot, but you sure get a lot, in the mental psychic realm. So I just happen to have all three of those. And when I was very small, I didn't understand at that point that it was unusual to be able to just go down to the creek there and be completely aware of grandmother Willow and how much she loved me and how much I could feel from her. And then I'd be playing in the creek and the water would be talking to me, and we're all looking at the tadpoles, etc. So there definitely was a period of time when my access was diminished, and that was actually at my request at the age of 9, because I couldn't handle it. It was too much, and I didn't know what it was about, right? But later on in my life, I desperately wanted to know what my life purpose was and why I was here. And really, why did I have these gifts? And I was fortunate enough that I was still listening when I would hear a call. I call it it's a spiritual call, but I hear a call, and the call won't stop until I answer it. And so I learned soon on that if I was being called, in this case, to the island of Haida Gwaii, that once I said, okay, I'm going, and I start to make plans, then the call calms down because I've agreed to come. So it's kind of like they've done their job, and now the rest is up to me. And I mean, this has happened over and over for 15 years. I get a call and I have no idea what it's about, though. and I get on a plane, or I pack my car, or I you know, make plans or space in my life, and I go and I show up at the riverbank, in front of the tree, in front of the mountain, and I'm like, hola, it's Danielea, I'm here, you called. What's up? How can I help? What's going on? And essentially I did that over and over and over and over and over and over. And every single time there was a very clear, beautiful, loving reason for them to have called me. And originally the call was mostly because they needed to help me heal certain parts in myself that were keeping me separate from humanity. And I thought, you know, after all those years, that I could kind of just stay hanging out with the nature elders, the water, the rock, the tree. We're learning together, we're talking, I'm studying etiquette and ethics and all these sorts of things. But then there came a point where they're like, off you go now, you know, like, off you go. And I'm like, what? I'm perfectly happy here. Well, that's not why we have apprenticed you and trained you how to build relationships with us. Now you need to go back into the human world, and and be a bridge for us with humanity. And so it, you know, as perfect timing would have it, that happened precisely when lockdown happened in 2020. Precisely. In fact, my ticket was booked to return to Cape Town, South Africa, to begin my apprenticeship with one of the most profound nature elders on the planet, Table Mountain. But when lockdown happened, I had to cancel that ticket, and I stayed home. And it was through that period of the pause and deep listening that I was given new instructions. And one of them was, it was time to build relationships with the humans who felt the same way that I do about water, rock, and tree. And I needed to do it in order to discover what my next work was. And sure enough, the next work was the listening field. And the listening field is a space, it's a ceremonial space that we create together. We meaning the human beings and the nature elders that each human being loves, knows and loves. And so the listening field is like, if you might want to imagine, it's a giant Zoom meeting. And when we start the Zoom meeting, the humans are all sitting at the table in their little squares on the Zoom screen. But when we open the field, each human will literally say, I am Danielea, and I am here on the unceded territory of the Quachino Nation, Northern Vancouver Island. And then we say these simple key ritual words, I call in. I call in. And then we simply say the name of the tree or the body of water, and they can live anywhere on Mother Earth. We say, I call in, we say their name, we say where they live on Mother Earth, and then everybody just takes a breath in and out. And in the space of that in and out breath, the spirit of that water or that tree or that mountain arrives in the field. And we can feel them. You can feel them. Everybody can feel them. And it was like, oh, okay, they're here. And then the next person does the same thing. And so we go like this around the table until you imagine in this Zoom meeting, we've got a human and a nature elder, and a human and a nature elder, and a human and a nature elder. And that's the field. So that's what I mean when I say we create it together. Now, I'm the host. I'm the host. So it's my job to make sure that everybody is looked after, human and nature elder, right? And so I help define the group questions. So this is where we come to, what's the reason that we've gathered? So there's always a reason, you know, we don't ask the elders to come unless there's a purpose, right? So predominantly the listening fields are consultations, which means, for example, something is going on in the human world. And we would like to ask the nature elders for their perspective on it. We might want to ask them for guidance about how to deal with something. And so what happens in the field then during the listening time is each human who is called in a particular tree or body of water will drop into their heart bond, their love bond with that elder. And in that space of deep listening in their hearts, you can have that two-way conversation. And so the human would ask the question that is the group question for that day. Right. So, for example, we held one just last Sunday on Earth Day weekend. And this was to ask the nature elders about this cross Canada tour that I have been called to organize, to go and meet nature elders in Canada. Well, part of the question is, well, how do we organize it? And who do we go to see? Canada is such a huge country, right? So we came up with some questions about, first of all, everything in the listening field and with nature elders is always done by permission. So this is the same whether you're on land or you're online. So I basically said to them once the field was assembled, hi, I've heard this call to come and meet with you, with some of you. I'd like to know more about these meetings with you. And so who would like to meet with us? So who would like to meet with us? And who would you like us to bring to meet you? Right. And do you have any guidance for how we're organizing this at the time? And so each person will ask the question themselves to the nature elder that they called in, and they'll write down the answers that they received. And then when the listening time is finished, and it's often like maybe 10 minutes, it's very quick actually. Then everybody puts what they've received in the chat. And then we have verbal sharing in which you can share with your own voice what happened for you. And there's always surprises, right? It's never the same. And because the approach with the listening field and everything that I do in my life is listening first, we're always in a place of being in good relationship and in harmony with the nature elders, because we're not coming in, right, without permission, and we're not coming in to control anything. We approach very respectfully, and with agreement from the nature elder, we enter into a conversation, just like we do in the human world.
That is just absolutely amazing. I love that. And, there's just so many places we can go with this, but I think the first thing is just understanding that this is all, all these entities around us, whether they're trees, water, or rock, are living entities. And just understanding that we have the ability to communicate with them, and understanding that we can put ourselves in a place where we can start communicating with the environment and with the trees and with all that around us, I think is just, it's in this day, this time, place, and circumstance that we're in, it's not knowledge that we're being given. It's not knowledge that a lot of us have, but it's very important knowledge for us to raise our vibration, to raise our frequency, raise the frequency of the earth, and live more in harmony within our environment. So with that being said, it is just an absolute, like an amazing project. And your YouTube channel, which we're going to be featuring here, you've got a phenomenal library of stuff, of videos. And so with that being said, and I've been on the channel and that, I want to promote that. What are some of the messages that we're getting from these elders? What are some of the things that they want to impart to us as they kind of watch the journey that we're on in this time, place, and circumstance right now?
Oh, that's a really good question. I'm just gonna reference, because it's just really important to capture their words exactly. Let me just so last year we actually, can you give me the chance to screen share? Would that be possible?
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Okay. Okay.
You're good.
I think it'd be easier for me to give you a couple of examples. So as I shared already, we always, when we open a listening field, it's for a reason. So last year, the listening field was fortunate enough to partner with World Unity Week and Unity Earth, and also with an organization called Eco-Governance. And they have this beautiful framework that's very holistic about how we can begin to live in harmony and self-govern ourselves around this. So one of the series of listening fields that we did partnering with Eco-Governance was to ask the 7 core needs that humans and animals have, to ask that the intelligence of those core needs, one of whom was living soil. How can we ensure that all humans and animals have access to living soil, right? And so what you're seeing before you is a message that I received from Living Soil. And I'll tell you just as an example of how this can happen. So I was 30 minutes before I was going to open the field. And in that time, as I'm getting ready, I'm tuning in to who we're going to speak to. But this particular day, I started crying, like literally crying. And I always check in when water flows in my body, whether this is tears and whether it's mine, whether it's someone else's, or sometimes water talks to me by coming to my eyes. They're not actually tears. But for example, when I say something that's really kind and it's resonant with water's way of being, they'll come to my eyes, and it's the way they go thumbs up. So it's not like I'm crying, it's water's going yes, and I'm like, okay, I'm on the right track. So that's just a little key for people who might be watching, because for those of us who we're feelers, we're intuitive feelers, you might have that experience where water comes to your eyes, when you don't expect it. And what I've learned is that it's actually water talking to us. It's not us having a reaction that's related to tears. Now, where I'm going with this is, so I checked in right away and I went, is this my grief? No. Is this living soil's grief? Yes. And then it started to sort of download more information to me. And I went, wait, can you just hold off until I open the listening field, and then I can really receive, because I have to get ready, right? So you can do this. You can talk with them and ask them to just hold the fort for a moment. I need to get ready. And so what happened was, sure enough, once we'd opened the field, it started again. And so, but I was free. Our video's off during the listening field, and I'm free to kind of move my body and ask questions and feel, etc. And what first of all, I was tapped into the living soil across the entire earth. So I really just dropped my consciousness in to merge with the living soil across the earth. And what I saw was that, and what I heard was that our tears, our grief, is actually, that water is actually nourishing to the soil. And it's not like, oh, give me your grief, so we can transmute your grief. That's another thing, when we're giving that kind of energy to Mother Earth so she can transmute it. This was something different, and I knew that. And what I saw was, they showed me images of human beings actually lying with their belly right down on Mother Earth, and their faces in the dirt, in the grass, right? And their tears, this grief that we all feel about what we've done to the earth, what we've done to each other, right? There's a lot of grief in the collective consciousness. And so I just saw these images of people lying belly down and allowing themselves to feel all that grief, and all the water from their body was flowing into the earth. And so then what I do is I make these memes, which are a graphic image with the message from the nature elder, as a way for their wisdom to be shared more publicly. Right. So this is actually a second version of this, because it distilled itself twice. But the first one was the longer one. Grief, 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 flow your grief, nourish me with your tears. That was my translation of a physical experience, because it can happen like that, right? You don't actually get the words, you get the experience. But then as I was preparing for something else, I sat deeper with that message, and I realized that actually water was saying, give me your, or soil was saying, give me your water.
Wow.
And so these messages are just, they're like meditations, right? You take in what works for you. Here's another one, super simple, from the mycelium community. Literally, learn to imitate us. You could spend a whole year on that one, right? Or you could be in a project and having a problem with somebody or an organization or something and go, oh, I wonder what the nature elders would say about this. And sometimes I imagine that these are like oracle cards, that you could just pull one out and, about a problem you're having, and you pull it out and it says, learn to imitate us. And then you look at that image and you see how the mycelial, how they connect and branch, and, maybe then do a bit more research to find out what actually happens underneath in that kingdom, right? And find your solutions there. So that's an example. Here's another one, super simple. Now, these are all different people receiving different messages. And that, I want to just say to you, is really important for listeners to take in. And that is that every single one of us is already wired to be able to do this, because we're made of all these elements ourselves. And each of our relationship with Mother Earth and all the kin is unique to us. There's no two that are the same. We could listen to the same river, and I might say, oh, for me, he's a masculine spirit, right? And for you, and you would say, if you didn't hear me say that, you'd go, oh man, she's really gentle with me today. And you would say she's female. And I don't say anybody's right or wrong. I say what's true for you and what is aligned in your heart with the heart of the nature elder. That's reality. And we need that kind of diversity at this time. Here's another one. This was, again, so these are like 4 from Living Soil, and you see how different they are. With this one, this was seek to understand and communicate with yourself on the microbial level, like right down into our microbes. And, I could imagine, I haven't done this one, I haven't worked with this one yet, but I can imagine, you see, when we start to put our consciousness into our cells at that microbial level, we can actually communicate with other relatives that exist at that microbial level. And the wonderful thing about being human is that we have this ability to modulate our frequency, to modulate our vibration, so that we can come into resonance with all these different relatives. And when we do, then we can have that communication heart to heart. So these are just examples. Now, this is a fun one, healthy water. So this was, how can we ensure that everyone has access to healthy water? And this person heard, singing in the shower blesses your body, blesses the sacred water that cleanses you, and blesses everyone that water touches after you. So the water's coming out and we're blessing it, saying thank you. Then I'm blessing it while it's on my body, but then it runs down the drain and into other pipes and it goes somewhere else. So your blessing is still in the water and you're passing that blessing on to others. I mean, this is not something that we would have ever thought of, but this is what water said to this person. This is how you can help make sure that everybody has access to healthy water. You can do it right from your own shower. Or this fun one, and this will be the last one. You are how water stands up. You are the way water walks around. Let the waters within you lead. And then it becomes our job to unpack what that means to us. And then to follow it. That's the key point, right? Is to trust what you receive and move into action. And I would say that that's been because I didn't have any human teachers ever about this. I got to develop my trust and in what I receive and in following it to the nth degree. In fact, my entire life is guided by my mission with the nature elders and the instructions that they give for me.
I accidentally muted myself there. That is absolutely beautiful. I love that. And getting these messages and getting this communication, like I said earlier, I think is incredibly important. But there's a couple things that I'd like to just circle back to. Number one is the amazing gift that you were giving at a very young age, where from a very young time in your life, you were able to have this communication, because ultimately it's all about frequency, energy. Your frequency was at the same frequency that these other entities were at. We've done many other calls in the past on this channel where we've talked about water being conscious entity. I did a video with Amani. I don't know if you're familiar with Amani.
Oh, I lived in Prince George for 10 years, so we've done
Okay,
much
so you know
ceremony
Amani,
together.
and that she
I
actually,
love her
yeah,
dearly.
and she had a great story about how they were doing a ceremony at the river. They were in the river, and a little dog, somebody that wasn't a part of their group, they let a little dog out. The dog got swallowed up in the river, and during this time, Amani reached out to the river and asked the river to release the dog, because the dog was getting washed down these rapids, and the dog popped up, and the dog basically was able to get to the shore. But up until then, it looked like this dog was basically, and that's what you're doing. I told you earlier, and we talked briefly, but this is the beauty about the culture of indigenous people, the culture of Native American people, is the fact that they were tied into all this, and they understood this very deeply. They all were communicating with nature. And the fact that you were given this gift at this time, place, and circumstance, and you're bringing it out now to the public, really ties in with a lot of the cultural history that's part of our planet. And also getting back to that understanding that trees are living entities and that we can communicate with them. Water is a living entity and we can communicate with water. And soil, which to me is actually new. And understanding that, I mean, that to me is just absolutely amazing. And I think it's time for us as a race, as humans, as we're evolving, and we're all talking about fifth density and all these different things about density. But what we really need to focus on also is just a higher consciousness and understanding that all this around us is living energy, and that we have the ability to communicate with these nature elders. And I think that that's important, because as we move forward, preserving the environment, being more conscious of the environment, being conscious of what's going into the water, being conscious of how we're going through development and all these different things, and putting a priority on preserving these living entities that are around us. I think it's a very important thing, and it's great for all of us, because by integrating our consciousness and our understanding with those beings around us, these beings within nature, there's just nothing but really amazing things can come from it. And it really showcases how amazing life is, how amazing the planet is around us, and what an absolutely amazing and beautiful world it is that we live in. And everything that you're doing is just phenomenal. But this is, if we're really going to get ourselves to the next step, there's a portion of it that's knowledge, right? Because we have to understand that this is part of what's around us. And then the other part of it is taking part in these types of things and putting ourselves out there where we can start communicating with all these elements and with all these elders, that are all part of our environment, that we're all, that are surrounded all around us.
Yes. It's certainly my understanding that at this particular time, when a great deal of us on the planet, not everyone, but a great deal of us are committed to helping to create a new reality. So we hear this phrase a lot, you know, the theme for World Unity Week. They're launching the first assembly is happening today. World Unity Week is a week of global events that happens in June each year, and the theme this year is New Earth Rising. And I think that term really applies because there's so many people coming together to work in collaboration, so much innovation happening to help turn around how we were living and working and operating on our planet, on our earth. So yes, and I am really stepping up now at this point in my life and in my work to be an advocate for building these relationships with nature elders personally, and that could be with the tree in your own yard. It can be with the neighbor's farm down the street or the river that runs through your town. So they can be anywhere, these nature elders. But it's important for not only for us to learn how to live in harmony, because in these relationships, the trees and the waters just naturally help us recalibrate our energy. So we start to think like nature, right? It just is very subtle. It happens, right? But I also believe that not only do we need their wisdom in order to co-create this new world and help us not to recreate things from the past, right? The errors from the past. But I believe that with the amount of change and uncertainty on the planet that's causing things like climate anxiety, really high suicide rates in youth of all cultures, that when you have a personal, intimate relationship with a tree elder or with a water elder or a mountain elder, first of all, they love us unconditionally and exactly as we are. So they don't judge us for destroying the planet that's been here for how many millions of years. They don't judge at all, ever. They never say anything like that, right? They love us exactly the way that they are. And they also are wonderful listeners. So if I have a problem, I have something going on in my life, I can go and sit with tree, or in my case, because we can do this without actually being physically present, I can just drop into my heart with my tree. And I just tell them what's going on. I said, hey, I'm having this problem with so-and-so, and it comes up every time I talk to them. And I know that it's partly me, but I don't really know what's going on. Do you have any guidance? And then I just leave that question with them, and then I just breathe and relax and wait. And then they'll send something back. They'll show me an image, or it'll be a memory of remind me of something that happened before. Or I literally will hear words where they'll just drop one of those 1 or 2 line statements on me, and I go, oh. And then if I need clarification, I could say, okay, I can see how that connects with A, B, and C. But I'm not really clear about what do I say to this person, or how do I, right? And then so I can say, can you show me more? Or can you clarify? And then they do. They'll send me another piece of information. And then, and when I feel complete, right, then I'll thank them. And I'll also thank them for exactly what they gave me. So it's not just like, oh, thanks very much, see you later. It's like, thank you for reminding me that the similar thing happened to me 5 years ago. Thank you for showing me that if I just pause and breathe and relax and just ask for more time before I speak to that person, that I can stay connected to my heart and speak kindly to them. Like, so and it's a way for them to know that I was paying attention. And then I get it, because these are teachers. They're in a teacher
Right,
mode then, right?
right.
And then I go, thank you so much. I'll see you later. And what's really important is that there's always reciprocity, meaning that I give something and I receive something. I give something and I receive something. So I'll often sing them a little song, or if I'm in person, I can pull a hair out of my head and I can leave it for them. I might have already made a little something out of some leaves or twigs that's beautiful, because I knew I was going to come to talk to them about something important. So I bring a gift. I leave that gift at the base of the tree. right? Or I hang it in a little branch, right? So I'm always giving in return in gratitude for what I've received. And then you see it works both ways, because I'm going to stand up and speak on behalf of a tree if something's going to happen to it in the community, right? So I advocate on behalf of the tree, right? So this is how it works, that just like a human to human relationship, we are helping each other. And at some time the tree is helping me, and at other times I'm helping tree, because I can go places tree can't. I have 2 legs, I have 2 thumbs, and I have a mouth, and I can get into the human meetings. So this is what I call co-creative partnership. That's what I'm standing for, and I believe that's where we're headed. And I often say this to people, I can see a time when we don't need to open a listening field as a ceremony, because our consciousness will have transformed to the point where we are in harmony with our nature relatives and our tree and water brothers and sisters. So there's a free flow of information. We're always hearing them. They're always hearing us. But instead of all the static and noise and complaining and violence that's part of the field now, the human field, most of that will be transformed, because we will understand that we are the tree and tree is us. And so anything I do to tree, I do to myself. Period. That's not negotiable. That's a law of the universe. So, this is what I imagine where we're headed. But right now, we need their wisdom. And so the listening field literally is a way that we can bring the wisdom and the voice of the nature elders right to the table, to the kitchen table, to the boardroom table, to the city council chamber table, to the international forum table. And I am, in fact, with the help of a few key team members, we're bringing the listening field to organizations and businesses so that they can actually communicate directly with the nature elders who create their products. I mean, imagine, this isn't just, your product is made out of hemp, or your product is made out of herbs, or your product is made out of, you use water to build the plastics, you've got oil, you got this. You could literally have conversations with the oil, with the plastic, with the water, right? And be checking out what you want to do with your business with them first. So rather than do harm and then, get financial penalties to try and clean up a mess you can't actually clean up, you're in consultation at all stages of projects, so that you're finding a way to operate your business that serves the nature relatives and elders, and serves your shareholders, and serves you to feed your family. So it's operating within a win-win, and we need to find that together. We don't know it. We find it together by listening to everyone at the table. Nature elder, human, and indigenous elders as well. The human indigenous elders. Yeah.
That's amazing. So for somebody that's out there right now that's watching this, and let's say, I'm in Virginia, where do you start? Like, where do you start? Where do you find that elder? Where do you find that part of nature that you start that relationship with? Is that, I guess if you're in New York City, maybe you're in Central Park and you find a tree, but where do you get that? Where do you get that start for the average person that's watching this?
Beautiful question. Beautiful question. So first of all, you just follow your heart, meaning you follow who's calling your attention. So just like you're walking through Central Park and all of a sudden your attention is caught by a particular tree. And when that happens, trust it. So then just pause, turn your body, and walk towards tree. Just walk towards them. Now, I don't walk right up to a tree ever. Just like you don't walk up right inside a human being's energy field without asking permission, right? So I go close enough where I feel like I'm still in my own space and tree is in their own space. And a very, very simple thing to do that doesn't going to make you look weird to anybody, is you could literally just stand there, close your eyes, and just take 2 or 3 breaths to just bring yourself present in your own body and in your own heart. And in so doing, you're kind of just, your awareness of what's around you, it just recedes. And then once you feel yourself really present in your heart, you can send just a wave of love or a wave of appreciation or gratitude, even gratitude for how beautiful that tree is. And you send that to the heart of the tree. You don't have to know where the heart is. You just send that wave to the heart of the tree, and tree will receive it. And then you just breathe and feel, because tree's going to send you something back. It can just be a wave of, oh, feel good. You'll just laugh, right? Or smile when you weren't smiling. But you'll feel something will happen. Something will happen. And it's subtle. That's why we stay quiet and just really present and breathe. And so once you receive something back, that's what I call the heart link. It's been established. So trees on one end, you're on the other end. And then whatever you think in your heart, or you see, if you have an image in your heart, tree will receive that also. That's your communication. So you can say something. You can literally just go, hi, and then tree will respond back with something, with their hi. Sometimes you'll hear their own hi, but sometimes it'll be a wave and you'll feel something in your body. So, and then it just goes back and forth, like you just let it unfold. That might be all that happens, right? Is like, cool. Or it's all you have time for. And then it's like, wow, thank you. This has been really good connecting with you. I would like to come back. How is that for you? And then tree says, yeah, I'd like that too, right? And it's like, cool, have a great day. And off you go. And that can simply happen in less than 5 minutes. And you've made what I call a heart bond. You've made a bond. And when you make that bond, it's there forever. It's there forever. It's like a plug-in or an add-on on a web platform. You're plugged in. And then that connection will grow and deepen and expand the more you pay attention to it and you're present. And I'll say one of the things that's really funny when I work with people, because I do private mentoring. So the other option is you can come and work with me, but I'll tell you, it's very easy. What we're talking about is easy and natural. So you can absolutely start on your own. But what I wanted to say was, what was I going to say? Where were we? Start on your own. Oh, yes, childhood. Sometimes we open a listening field with someone and they've never done this before ever in their life. And in the process, once you're in your heart, your soft gaze and awareness can just open to like all the nature elders and relatives you've ever met. So they kind of just float in your awareness and consciousness. And then one will sort of hang around. And that's usually who wants to get called in, the one who hangs around. And what's really fascinating is what often happens for people is that it's a childhood tree. And then the person will, when we finish the listening field, they say, oh my gosh, I have not thought about that tree in 35 years. And yet when it came in my heart and I called them into the listening field, it was as if it was yesterday. And I was 7 years old, climbing in their branches. So that's why I know that once you make a bond, you could cross a river and on a vacation, but really feel connected to that river for no reason that you can explain. But the connection was powerful enough that if we were to open a listening field, you could literally say I call in that creek we crossed in the Peugeot in 1975 before we went into the village in Colombia. Like, you don't even have to know the name of it. It's just like those are the parameters of the memory, and that creek will come in. And you don't even know what the name of it is because you make that heart bond. So for me, it's a testimony to the power of love. Love as a life force energy through which we can communicate, through which we can enhance and heal and regenerate life, right? But more than anything else, it's something that connects us together, and that's forever.
That's so beautiful. I love the fact that once you've got that connection, uh, being physically present at that point is no longer relevant. You can bring in that that living entity. You can bring in that tree or that body of water by just focusing on that particular tree or that particular body of water and interact. And that is in itself is just absolutely amazing. And in fact, we talked about this before. You've got everybody's going to have to go to your channel, subscribe to your channel. Um,
Mm.
but the one with the lady that was talking to the orcas, the woman,
Yes. So once a month, I have a show. It's a Zoom cast. So it's on Zoom, but then I post it up on YouTube. It's called Adventures in Eco Relations at the moment. The title may change. But in any case, last month, Mary Getten, Getten, she was my guest. And she's got a beautiful book, beautiful, beautiful book, communicating with orcas. And it's from their perspective. And yes, Mary had some incredible stories. She was a naturalist and she was on one of the whale watching boats. And it was there that she began to form a friendship with Granny. She was the matriarch
yes.
of a particular pod. And the book is amazing. I totally recommend the book. It's on Amazon. And it's communicating with orcas, but you can find it, Mary Getten, Getten. And yeah, they're wonderful stories. So you can look at, there's a whole playlist of the people that I've interviewed, and it's called Adventures in Eco Relations. And so that's a really good way to start, because what you're going to hear is all the different ways that it happens. You know,
Yes.
mine is just unique to me. Mary's, and people come to it at different times. There are people like me who came in and were always hooked up. There's lots and lots of people who had their own wake up at their own age
Mhm.
in for the reasons that it did. And some of them go on to make it their work. So Mary was a nature communicator, an animal communicator for 25 years, right?
Mhm.
And is now retired, but and also works with water and trees. And she's working with
Yeah.
me on some other projects. So yeah, I highly recommend those. I also suggest that you go to the videos that are, say, messages from climate,
Okay.
messages from biodiversity, and messages from the web of life. And these are the last three listenings we did as part of a collaboration with Eco Governance, who I mentioned before. And there you're going to hear what climate said to some people, right? And so
Wow.
again, this is the understanding that all these, they're topics in the intellectual world, right? But in a whole world view or an indigenous view, everyone is alive, everyone has intelligence, and everyone can communicate. It's up to us to learn how to hear what they're saying, right?
Right.
So I totally recommend those three videos as well, because it's quite moving when you hear out of people's own mouths what they heard the nature elders
Mhm.
say.
It's beautiful. And I think, a lot of it just starts with understanding that this is actually part of our living reality that we're in, and being able to understand that so you can start tuning into all these different things. So the knowledge of that, and I mean, it's just life is just so absolutely amazing. And when you start learning these things and you understand that everything around you is living, and we talk a lot about Mother Gaia as the planet as a living entity, but then you break down all the water as living entities and the trees as living entities and all these things that are around us that we actually have the ability to communicate with, and opening up to that and tuning into that is just absolutely, it's just such a phenomenal thing. And it just really ties into how amazing life is, how amazing we are as living entities that have the ability to do that intercommunication. And I think it ties into just the raising of our frequency and in our, our consciousness.
It is. And I also want to acknowledge that there are many, many, many people like me who have been developing their own version of communicating with different elders. And everybody's sort of finding each other now and coming out. So,
Right.
for example, P. Horsley with animaltalks.com, she hosts an annual series of conversations with nature, and she just finished that, and it's amazing. There, she was also interviewing people who are communicating and all the different relatives they're communicating with. So she's a wonderful resource. That series is a wonderful resource. Pam Montgomery, who's an herbalist, and she's been communicating with plants, right? And trees,
Mhm.
but predominantly plants. So she's got wonderful courses and things. So there are so many people. What I would say is unique about the listening field is I'm the only person I know of so far that with the nature elders have come up with a way that groups of people and groups of human and nature elders can be in a field together to discuss topics of mutual concern, right? So this is a group. What the listening field does helps us do this as a group. Even though I offer private listening fields, right, for people who need to make decisions in their life, the nature elders are so great for that. This is what makes the listening field unique. Is it so, for example, I'll just give an example. This year, I'm being guided to organize listening fields with who I would call like planetary nature elders. So with the Amazon and with the Arctic. So these are whole regions of nature elders. And so this is the listening field is a perfect vehicle to give a platform that for the Amazon to speak to more of us, which of course
Mhm.
I say the Amazon, but the Amazon River and the Amazon forest are what make the Amazon, as well as all the billions of life forms, right?
Mhm.
So that's just what distinguishes the listening field, and also that I'm so committed to bringing the voice of the nature elders right
Mhm.
into the decision-making process of
That's beautiful.
corporations, governments, business, etc. Yeah.
That is just absolutely beautiful. So somebody right now is watching the video. What is the YouTube channel name? Is what do you have down? I'm gonna put it up above, right, so people can find it. But anybody that's out there that's listening, where would they find the YouTube channel? They just go into YouTube and type in the listening field.
Correct. Yeah, just type is in the listening field. Absolutely. And then if you're on Facebook, you can join my Facebook page. It's also called the Listening Field. And of course, my name is Danielea Castell, but the Listening Field is the Facebook page. And then I also have a private Facebook group called the Listening Field Community. So I welcome you to follow all of those, especially because, as you know, and we'll talk about this more in futures, is that I'm organizing a tour called Answer the Call. And we're going to be going out to interviewing Canadian nature elders to find out what they have to say about what's going on right now. And that's going to involve the filmmaker and the making of short films about what the nature elders in Canada have to say. And so getting my subscription, my followers up both on my page and on the YouTube channel is a huge help as we start to approach funders for this very, very exciting and worthwhile project.
This is so exciting. So I told you when we first started this call, well, actually before we started the call, that this is going to be an ongoing series that we're going to do with talks with you and follow the progress and talk about all the amazing things. This trip through Canada is going to be absolutely amazing. That is super exciting. I'm really excited to hear also that you do have a filmmaker. So for anybody that's out there, please subscribe and share. We're going to have you back on again soon. But before I let you go, is there anything else you'd like to say to finish up today?
I think I would just like to invite people to say that what we're talking about with nature communication is extremely simple. And the reason it's simple is because you already love who you love. And then you just be with that tree or water that you love. You just be with them and get quiet in your heart and then just connect heart to heart. So it's really simple and we all can do it. We're just remembering.
Right. That is beautiful, Danielea. I am so happy to get you on today to get this message out. This is phenomenal. What you're doing is amazing, and you are a true blessing to our planet and to humanity. So thank you so much for all that. That is amazing. And I can't wait to talk to you again. So go down in the links section. I'm going to put your web address down there. I'm going to put your YouTube channel, Facebook, and we're going to look forward to seeing you again real soon. Thank you once again for your time today, and God bless you. I can't wait to talk to you again.
Thank you so much, Sean. Blessings to you and yours.
Blessings. And stay with me. I'm going to shut down the video recording, but I'm going to hang with you for
Okay.
just a sec after we're done.